Welcome back to the Quill Tee Knit Along. I'm Jana with Purl Together. And this week we're going to talk about how we pick up the stitches and knit the sleeves. Now, this is a short sleeve sweater according to the pattern, but I'm going to choose to make my sleeves quite a bit longer. And several of you have also asked how to go about that. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to choose to do. Your mileage may vary. It might work for you. It might not. But hopefully I'll give you some tips about that, and it will work out just fine. And feel free to always ask questions in the Facebook and Ravelry group. You can tag me if you like in either of those places. You can ask questions down below in the comments. And if you are a channel member, I'll certainly see those first because you have the badge. So I prioritize answering those comments first. So you can check that out next to the join button, right next to the subscribe button. Okay, let's get started with that. Okay, the first thing we want to do is pick up some stitches from the center here, and then we're going to pick these up, add a couple stitches in the corner, knit our way around, add a couple of stitches here in this corner, and then get back to the center under the arm. So the first thing I need to do is just determine where the center under the arm is. And it doesn't have to be super picky, but I like to kind of count the columns and see where that is. So you can see these chain edge stitches here. Let me zoom in a little for you. Okay, and there should be 14, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to go over roughly 7, and then 7 or 8, and then I'll count the other side and make sure that that's reasonably close. 4, 5, okay. So that looks pretty good. What we want to do is go in under both legs and attach the yarn we're using. In my case, I want to make sure that I have the same color going on here that I left off with. And I have saved enough back for this purpose. So the first thing I like to do is just make a tail that's 4 or 5 inches down below and hang on to that. And then I'm just going to start knitting. I'm going to pick that up, pick up those stitches underneath. Of course, I split the first one I do just because I'm showing you. There we go. And I'm going to go in underneath the next leg there. And I'm just going to pick these up across until I get to the corner. There should be 7 or 8. And I'm going to show you how you can mitigate holes in the corners of the underarms. But if we end up with a small hole there, we can also just deal with that later on. Okay, we are almost to this corner here. I have this kind of weird thing going on here. It's kind of stretched out. I'm going to go underneath both. That's a stretched out leg, I think, so I'm going to go underneath both of those. I'm going to do another there. And then this appears to be my corner. So I'm going to knit, I'm going to go in like from the back and kind of twist that. And I'm going to knit right into that, into the back, and grab it as if it were, on a needle, and knit into the back. I'll show you that again in a minute, but I might do another. See, that's kind of a long ladder. So I think I might do another one where I go in from the back, and I'm going to use the other point, the other needle here, to go in underneath it and lift that up and knit right into the back of that as if it were another knit stitch. Okay, now I'm to my waste yarn. So what I want to do here is lift that up, get that stitch underneath, and then I'm going to go and just transfer everything off my waste yarn onto the right hand working needle here. And that's going to take a few minutes because it's a little bit awkward. But I do 2 or 3 stitches, and then I pull this out and just carry on all the way around. And like I said, if we end up with a little bit of gap right here, we can either leave it because it's under the arm and hopefully nobody will see it, or I can show you later how we're going to mitigate that and sew that hole shut. If it turns out to be troublesome, we'll handle that later. Okay, now that we've picked up all the stitches all the way around, our working yarn is way back here. So what I do is we need to, one option would have been to knit the stitches off of the waste yarn and continue knitting all the way around. I find that a little bit cumbersome, and I would prefer to just get all the stitches on and then worry about the, catching up the knitting after the fact. So all I'm doing here is cinching up my stitches on my loop, and then I'm going to curl this around to make like a simple traveling loop. And then I'm just going to slip these stitches back onto my right hand needle. Now I know we still need to pick up these, and we will, but I'm going to slip these stitches back onto my right hand needle and get back to my working yarn. Now, if you would, if you don't want to have to do this and feel like you're kind of duplicating your effort, you can absolutely just knit those stitches right off your, whatever you're holding them on, whether that's the waste yarn or a barber cord or, metal stitch holders or whatever you have there. But now I'm back to my working yarn. So I'm just going to continue knitting all the way around one row here. And then we're going to continue picking up those other stitches underneath the underarm. All right, I knitted my way around, and now I just need to pick up an extra stitch in this corner so we can try to mitigate any gap we might have. So I'm going to go in from the back and twist that stitch. So that will help. Knit that right on, and then I could even do another, but I might go in underneath the first couple of legs. And then you kind of just have to fudge it and see what looks best for you. But I'm going to go in underneath the legs of the stitches. There you go. See that? Let me zoom in a little bit. Going in underneath the legs right there. Pick those up. This is the tail end. Let's get this cable out of the way and take a look. I think that's pretty close. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, and this is, again, not elegant, but my knitting really isn't. It's just more functional than that. Let me zoom back out a little bit. You can double check that you have everything picked up because your columns, each column should have a stitch on your needle or on the cable over here. So now what I'm going to do is take this tail and I'm going to tie it loosely. I mean, it's snugly. So I just did a little square knot right there. That's all. Okay, and then I'll weave those ends in later. But now I know everything is secure. And I'm going to count. And then I'm going to split half for my magic loop. All right, I counted, and I have 120. And your mileage may vary. If you need to decrease away a few stitches because you picked up extras in the corners, that's totally fine. I would do it the same way that you do a sock gusset, where if you knit one, then slip, slip, knit, go all the way around till you have 3 left, and then knit 2 together, knit 1. I would just do that and alternate that with a decreased round and a plain round until you get down to the number of stitches that your pattern calls for your size, for the sleeve. And then we're just going to knit, I believe it says 3 centimeters or the desired length. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is try this on and make sure that the sleeves fit just fine the way they are and the number of stitches I have. Then I'm going to measure, like, say, right above my elbow and see how many inches that is compared to how many stitches per inch, and then I'll know how many I need to decrease. Then if I want to make my sleeve longer than my elbow, I'll go ahead and measure on down here, and I'll see the rate of decrease. Okay, so then if I want to make it bracelet length or actual full length to my wrist, I'll know the difference in stitch count between how many stitches I have at the elbow compared, and the inch measurement there, compared to how many stitches I have, say, here, because then I'm going to knit some ribbing, right? So I might want to measure about here and see that measurement. If that's, say, 8 inches and I have however many stitches per inch I'm currently knitting, you see where I'm going here with this. Then you're going to knit your ribbing, however many rows likely for you. So I know the collar for me was 12 rows, and that's a pretty good cuff. And then I think I knitted 16 or 20 on the bottom, and that's a pretty good cuff. So you can get an idea of how much ribbing you might want at the bottom or at the elbow, and then where to stop short and knit your 1x1 ribbing and then bind off. So I hope that makes sense. As always, make sure you ask questions if you need to in the group, the Ravelry group, the Facebook group. All the links for those things are down below in the video description. So I look forward to seeing your finished quill tee. I'm pretty happy with mine so far. I will be doing a drawing for the grand prize package, which is listed over on Ravelry. So go check that out. Those posts if you're interested in a finishing prize and the potential to win that. Okay, the other thing I want to say is thanks so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for you. The channel recently hit 60,000 subscribers. Yay! So that makes me very happy. Thank you so much for being here and continuing to support Purl Together.